Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking all about Omnipod 5 and the top 5 tips that I would recommend to anyone who is either using the pump or looking to use the pump. So for those who are new, hello, my name is Olivia and I've been a type 1 diabetic for over 20 years. And in that 20 years, I have looked for many ways to make living with type 1 diabetes more enjoyable and more sustainable. And one of the ways I've done that most recently is by starting the Omnipod 5 insulin pump. And I started about 6 months ago. Before that, I was using the Dexcom CGM for a few years now. I'm currently using the G7, which I absolutely love. So that collaborates with my Omnipod 5, making it for a very nice, enjoyable diabetic experience. So I come here on YouTube to share that experience with you guys because let's just be honest, we do not all trust doctors. But I think it's safe to say that we trust people who are using the system and those that are willing to share honest information with other people so that way they have all the information they need to make an educated choice. So as a disclaimer for this video, I'm giving you my top tips for Omnipod 5 as a type 1 diabetic who is not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I am not a nurse. I do not work in the medical industry. I actually currently am a stay-at-home parent, and prior to that, I was a chef. So, being said, I am the exact opposite of a doctor. So, in conclusion, do not take this as medical advice. If you have any questions, talk to a diabetic educator, call Omnipod themselves, or even talk to your doctor. So, let's get into it, and I'm going to start with my top tip that I think anyone would recommend to anyone using Omnipod. And it's really hard in the beginning to hear this advice, but basically just breathe. Just breathe. I know, as most do, that when you're starting an insulin pump, especially for the first time, it's a very big deal and it should not be taken lightly. So when you start an insulin pump for the first time, the trust is not there. Now, I know that you cannot take me 100% and say, you know what, Olivia on YouTube told me to trust Omnipod, so I just should. I know that takes time to trust technology these days, but just try to breathe and know that it will be okay. My first few weeks of having Omnipod were very touchy for me because I've done self-injections for years and I have never trusted technology to do much for me. Even hopping on Dexcom a few years ago was a very big deal for me. So the idea of trusting a robot to technically give me my insulin and trust that everything was going to work out fine was a very hard concept for me to wrap my mind around. So I would imagine that a lot of people are in the same boat I am. So in the beginning, I was double checking everything with my pump and with my Dexcom to make sure everything was going okay. And now I've been on it for 6 months, I can accurately say that Omnipod has really made my blood sugars a lot more stable and a lot better. So being said, if you're starting the process in the beginning, just breathe and trust the process that it will be okay. And you know what? If it's not okay, then you can obviously just rip the pump off then and there and just go back to self-injections. I currently still have my short-acting and long-acting insulin that I was on prior to the pump. So that way, if one day I just have my fill of Omnipod or I experience something bad, I have my backup and I can go right back doing things the way I used to. And that's my security blanket. Just having that in my fridge tucked away, knowing that if things get bad, I can always go back to doing things the way I used to. But trust the process, and that's my first tip when using Omnipod, which is a very self-explanatory and almost obvious tip. Tip number 2 is start reading nutrition labels. And this sounds like the most tedious, awful tip in the world. And as a backstory, before starting on the pump, one of the reasons I was hesitant to it was because I always eyeballed things. When you've had diabetes for a long time, us diabetics are very good at looking at food objects and kind of guesstimating what we should take for insulin. And I know we got to buffets, we got to restaurants where there's no way for us to know the nutrition, but we do a good job guesstimating the roundabout how much medicine to take. However, when I'm at home, I try to do my best at read the nutrition labels, know what I'm eating, and know the amount I'm eating. Because with the Omnipod 5 insulin pump, you put in how many carbs you're eating at each meal, and it gives you your medicine based on what your blood sugar is, how many carbs you're eating, and then you're good to go. But if you are guessing your carbs, it makes it a lot harder to get a good blood sugar reading 2 hours after you eat something. And I'm going to give a great example. When you are eating pasta, one cup of cooked pasta is technically a portion. That's one portion. Now, I can speak for myself that I know when I'm not measuring or weighing my food out, I could easily eat 4 cups of pasta without even thinking about it, which in your mind, you think, I'm full, that was one serving. The box says this many carbs, that's what I'll take, when in reality, you ate so much more than that. So recently, I have been on a calorie deficit, so I've been tracking what I'm eating. And it has made such a difference in my blood sugar numbers and my Omnipod 5 experience, just because I am weighing my food out and I'm knowing how much I'm eating and all of that. It really does help to get better blood sugar readings when you put the accurate information into your pump. And coming from someone that went from not weighing her food to weighing her food, is I was eating so much more calories and so much more carbs than I thought I was. Where now I see what I'm doing and I'm more aware. So I'm not telling you guys to maybe go as extreme as me and go out and buy a food scale and start weighing everything to the gram. I'm just saying be very aware of what you're eating and the portion sizes and what the nutrition label says. And doing that will make your pump experience much, much better. Tip number 3 is about exercising. I am a very big advocate for exercise. I think it's fantastic for the mental, for physical, for just all aspects of your health. I think exercise is amazing, and I know that I really enjoy it. So having the pump has really changed exercise for me, because being on long-acting and short-acting insulin seemed to honestly cooperate better with my exercise regimen than the pump does, because the pump gives you insulin throughout the day, short-acting. So your body responds to that a lot differently than it does when you're just on long-acting and then you take insulin when you eat. So prior to being on the pump, I had no issue exercising in the morning and keeping my sugars elevated. And to be completely transparent, I never had to eat anything before exercising because my body would just be fine. It would never drop too low. Now, when I started the Omnipod 5 insulin pump, that was one of the biggest adjustments, was my sugars drop almost every single time I'm exercising. And a few tips to kind of get you through that is Omnipod 5 doesn't have an activity mode. And what that activity mode does is it basically tells your pump, instead of focusing your sugar to be 110, it raises it up. So it says the target range is like 150, 160. So that way the pump is giving you less insulin while you're working out, and you can put it on for a certain duration of time. Now, my first tip with Omnipod is to put it on early before you work out, to kind of give your body some time to regulate itself before working out and to raise your sugar up a little bit. I actually put my pod on activity mode 2 hours before starting a workout to keep me from dropping as low, because my lows are very extreme when exercising with the pump. I know that I do a spin class a few times a week, and the spin class is 1 hour long, and I go into the spin class with my sugar over 300 every week, every class over 300. And when I am leaving, despite having the activity mode on, my sugar is low, 60, 70. But in that duration of an hour, going from 300 to 60 or 70, if I didn't eat before I started the class, if I didn't put the activity mode on early, it would be even worse. It would be even lower. I know that if I look at my pump and I see that my sugar's in a normal range, I can't exercise. I just can't. It's just really hard for me and the Omnipod 5 insulin pump. So it kind of leads into my second half of the tip when exercising on the pump, is to always, always, always have a snack with you. I love carrying hard candies in the gym with me and little candies. I love carrying things that are small, so it fits in my purse, that I can easily pop in my mouth that will bring my sugar up quick. Obviously, you can use glucose tablets or cake gel too. That would also help. But we all know I'm not going to go sit there and have a 10-foot long hoagie in the middle of my workout, but sometimes if my sugar's dropping in spin, I'll walk out, I'll throw a few hard candies in my mouth and go back in, and I'll be okay. So exercising, just be aware of what's going on. Tip number 4 is to always have your pump have a backup. So your pump will fall off. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect at all. And I have 2 toddlers, and it's happened multiple times where my toddlers pull off my pump, or I run into something and the doorway knocks the pump off. And if I'm not home, I need to have a backup on me. So whether that be a pump and my medicine, or just my medicine, and I can do self-injections until I get back home, but always have a backup. You can't 100% trust when you're out that your pump is just going to stay on you the entire time. It's very similar to Dexcom. If you have Dexcom, top tip with them is always have a backup. As a kind of a comical story, slightly comical, on my honeymoon, I got married during COVID, and my husband and I did a long weekend away. And I did not bring any backups to my Dexcom. And what do you think happened on my wedding night? My Dexcom fell off. So on our wedding night, instead of enjoying our own company, we were out driving to the closest Walmart to find a finger prick and to find a blood glucose monitor, so that way I could test my sugar on our honeymoon weekend versus driving hours back home to get another Dexcom. So that itself taught me a huge lesson to always have a backup Dexcom and always have a backup pump on me, just in case they, God forbid, do fall off. And then the last thing I want to recommend with the Omnipod is to always be aware of where it is and how your sugar is doing. Now, I say that because this is a cordless, tubeless pump. I'll show you. So it's a tubeless pump. So when you have this on your body, this is all that's on there. That little rectangular box, that's all that's on you. So you can honestly quite easily forget about it, because you don't have to worry about tubing. You don't have to worry about disconnecting everything. Once you put it on, it lasts for 3 days, and then in 3 days you take it off and put a new one on. So sometimes it can be hard to remember where it is, and also remember that you're even wearing an insulin pump. Now, this is my first insulin pump experience. I've never even done a tube type insulin pump, just because I do have kids and I can't even imagine them, how many times they yank on those cords. I didn't want to think about it, so that's why I got this one. But be aware of where it is all the time. One, so that way the chances of falling off make it, obviously a lot less, because then you're aware of your surroundings, but also because this almost serves, between this and Dexcom, serves as an artificial pancreas. So when you're wearing it, it does a good job at regulating your sugars. So I know since starting the pump, I have not heard my Dexcom beep off at me anymore. But just because it's not beeping off at me does not mean my sugars are 100% perfect. So I can go throughout my day without ever hearing my Dexcom beep at me, and the pump's kind of doing the background music and background noise of making sure that my sugars are balanced and taken care of. But just always remember that you do have to take your insulin when you eat. You have to give boluses. Your pump will do a good job at making sure that your sugars stay regulated in a good zone throughout the day. But just always be aware that you still are diabetic and you are still needing insulin. So it seems like a very simple tip, but I just know that sometimes it can happen when you're out and about and you're having a good time that you kind of forget, because it's always on my arm. Mine's on my arm. I don't think about it too often. And if my Dexcom's not beeping at me that I have a problem, you might not realize that your sugar is getting higher, or you might just say, you know what, I know I ate, but I'll take my insulin later. I don't feel like grabbing the controller. Just always be aware that you still need to do these things when you're having the pump. The pump does take a lot of thinking out of the equation when it comes to diabetes, but you still need to think and you still need to be aware of your surroundings and what's going on. So that's my last tip. So 5 tips today that kind of had a lot of different sub tips within the tips, but I hope it helped you out. And if it did, please give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps me and my channel out, and I really am happy that I can make a difference in other people's lives. And I hope that you guys try the pump and you like the pump. And if you have any special experiences you want to share with me, leave it in my comments below. I'd be more than happy to read it. And I will see you guys in the next video. And I hope you guys have a fantastic, beautiful, beautiful weekend. Bye.